The first truth we must understand this morning concerning our choices is that if our choices are dictated only by considering ourselves, then we can rest assured they will place us diametrically opposed to the nature of the God we claim we serve. Hear this and hear this well this morning, New Hope. Being opposed to God, not aligned with Him, is never the place that you want to be. For those who are outside of God's expectations are in line for His correction. And this correction may come in the form of you going through some things that had you made the right decision in the first place, you would not have had to go through. Just ask the children of Israel, who found themselves over and over and over again outside of God's expectations and in the hands of their enemies through captivity in Egypt and in Assyria and in Babylon. All of which would have never happened had they not given over to their own selfish desires. The problem is that many of us, like Israel and Gehazi in our text this morning, have allowed our choices in life to be dictated by what we believe is in our own best interests, without considering the impact of those choices on anybody else. The effects of which have found us outside the will of God and sitting squarely in the midst of situations we can't even consider how to get out of. Struggling from paycheck to paycheck, because when the Lord blessed us, it was all about us. Struggling in relationships because we founded them in the wrong place at the forefront and only considered the physical desires of ourselves. Struggling with our jobs because we only looked at the bottom line number and didn't consider the Lord in our decision to accept it. You see, when we stop making choices that are only considerate of ourselves and the fulfillment of our desires for life and begin to make choices that take into consideration others and align with God's perspectives, we can be assured that we'll experience all the goodness that all the goodness of life, all the goodness that life has to offer. For the Bible does say in Romans, all things work together for the good of them that are called, that love the Lord and are the called according to His purpose. The essential element of that verse is that not only do you love God, but you recognize that the Lord has set you apart to be used according to His will and good pleasure for you. But when we continue in this selfish vein of it's all about me and what can I get and where can I go, we set ourselves up, whether we believe it or not just to find ourselves in hardship, but to affect the lives of others in negative ways. Hear the Lord say this morning, you are called to be disciples. That is a servant first and foremost. Remember what the Apostle Paul said in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. I like it from the Message version. It says, put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourselves long enough to lend a helping hand. Romans 15, 1 and 2 from the Message version says, those of us who are strong and able in the faith need to step in and lend a hand to those who falter, and not just do what is convenient for us. Strength is for service, not status. Each one of us needs to look after the good people around us, asking ourselves, how can I help? The Lord is saying to us today that if we're making choices just on the basis of ourselves as disciples, then we've chosen to wander off course. And we are no longer following Him, but instead are leaning on our own selves for guidance. And when we lean on self for guidance in the life we've been blessed with, we're sure to get lost and not know how to get out. Look at Gehazi making decisions for his own benefit, never a consideration for Naaman and his need to know a grace with no bounds. Never a consideration for Elisha and the fact that the Lord worked through him to do something amazing, and any other approach might limit the full impact of the understanding in the eyes of the one who received the gift. Never a consideration of the fact that his decision would impact him and all those who came after him. He neglected God's guidance. Listen. One of our cars is in the shop right now. You know, I said that because some of y'all run around and talking about Pastor got a new car. Yeah, y'all laugh, I know. Well, one of the cars is in the shop right now, and we got a rental vehicle out there. That's what's in the space out there. The white, the big white one. All right. Anyway. The car came equipped with a GPS. The other day I was riding along and I knew that where I wanted to go. And I said, let me try this thing out. It's not my car. Let me see how all the bells and whistles work. So I put the address in and we start going. I'm driving along and it tells me to make a turn that I've never made to get where it is that I'm trying to go. So I consider to myself, do I follow this or do I go my own way? I go my own way. And when I go my own way, I hear the GPS say, rerouting, right? It says that 2 or 3 times because every time I'm supposed to turn, I keep going my own way. The truth is that some of us, eventually I found myself in a traffic jam. And if I had just followed the GPS, I never would have ended up in that jam. Here's what I'm saying. Some of us as disciples have begun to make choices that are taking us off track. And the Lord is continually saying to us, rerouting. He wants us to get back on course, but because we think we're just so smart, we're following our own way. And you're about to end up in a mess. The truth about our choices is if they're guided by self alone, New Hope, is that they place us directly in opposition to God. Amen. Gehazi makes a choice to run after Naaman, to gather the goods that he wants for himself, finds himself in opposition to God's perspectives, which we see because of Elisha's reaction to what it is that's happening. Yeah. The text says that Elisha asked Gehazi where he's been, and Gehazi makes a choice either to lie or not to lie. And he chooses to lie. Says he's been nowhere. To this, Elisha responds in a way that lets him know his actions have already been revealed. Elisha then goes on to say, Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and your descendants forever. I imagine Gehazi standing there, and at the moment in which this judgment is passed down to him, his heart dropping. For Gehazi had not considered how his quick decision would have had such an impact. After all, in his mind, he'd only decided to go against the mindset of the master in order to seek a small amount of silver and a couple pieces of clothing. When we consider the choices that Gehazi made, in essence, he traded his eternal peace for a few trinkets with some temporary value. The Lord would have us to understand this morning that the second truth of our choices is that any time our choices are motivated only by physical desires, whatever we choose will surely fade away. Yes. But the impact of that choice will last forever. In other words, your choice has a shelf life, but the impact of your choice does not expire.